Well, Beijing is accusing the United States of violating Chinese law after an American warship sailed near a disputed island in the South China Sea. The foreign ministry said the Chinese side near the island took relevant measures, including monitoring and admonishment. The USS Curtis Wilbur sailed within 12 nautical miles of the Triton Island. The U.S. Defense Department said no Chinese military vessels were in the vicinity of the destroyer. And according to the Pentagon, the move is aimed at challenging efforts to restrict freedom of navigation. China and its neighbors have been locked in territorial disputes in the South China Sea. China has repeatedly told the U.S. to stay out of the row. Crossing over to Atlanta, joined by Jim W.dean, managing editor of Veterans Today. Thanks so much for being with us. What about this? Does the United States has the right? It says basically that it wants to challenge efforts to restrict freedom of navigation. Does Washington have that right near the Chinese waters?
Well, we're actually going to have a very long-running international dispute here. It's not so much the U.S. Claiming that China doesn't have the right. All the other countries in the region are claiming this also. The U.S. has just basically been the figurehead on this. And if you take a look at the map, which I really ask people to do, the South China Sea is huge, and it goes way down south of China into the oceans of where a lot of these other countries are. And for China to say that this is all of our preserve and we're going to be the boss to say how traffic is controlled here, internationally they don't have any leg to stand on whatsoever. They're just claiming that some islands way down there, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, were old China land, that gives them the right to make this claim. And they've got a bad hand there. But that's from the legal point. From a political point, they're making a big mistake because this is rallying the other nations around the U.S. to confront them on this. And China has worked very hard to build bridges with these people. So on this issue, by not willing to negotiate, why don't we work out a formula where if petrochemicals are found in this region, where all the countries in the region can share in them? I haven't heard them ever utter a word with this. And I think the problem is because China has a billion-person population, the unsaid is we feel that large population gives us a right to make a claim for all of the resources simply because we need them. And unfortunately, that sounds a little bit like communist capitalism.
How do you think this is going to play itself out? Obviously, China is also a power to be reckoned with. Do you think that they're going to back down, or is it going to become more and more confrontational, that the other side would perhaps put more pressure on Beijing? How do you see it?
I'm afraid I see both sides seeing some benefit in escalation. It strengthens themselves domestically. This is an important issue for China. And at some point, they're going to have to grow up, and the grown-ups are going to have to come in and say, this is going to have to be negotiated out. And I see no way out of this without coming up with some kind of formula, even if it's based on population, which I think would be fair, that all future resources found in the region would be shared. They would be exploited and developed as a group and shared as a group. And if they do anything other than that, they're really hurting everybody and shooting themselves in the foot.
All right, thank you so much for being with us out of Atlanta, Managing Editor of Veterans Today, Mr. Jim W.dean.